Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mid-Spring Speed Fling. Coming up next, we have Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, any percent, the first time that we've seen this run at this event. So take it away, Bailey.
What's going on, guys? This is a very in-depth run. Like, it has been changed quite a lot recently. Over the past year, Jim has found a ton of tricks. It was shown off at HDQ2020. I'm going to try to pay a little bit of justice to that and show you some new tricks. So, whenever we're ready to start, I'm good to go.
Yeah, just give us a countdown.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. So the main thing here is you're gonna notice I'm skipping these cutscenes, and this is only possible because I'm playing in hero mode, and you actually have to beat the game fully and then restart on hero mode. But what we do for any percent is we just have hero mode files that we copy over, and we just use those for any percent. That way we can save some time. And this route actually wouldn't even work without this. If we didn't have hero mode, it would soft lock after a trick really late in the game, and we couldn't complete it at all. And we're gonna randomly talk to this dude because we need flags from him. They'll come into play later. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Deesh, I'd appreciate it.
Hello, I am Deesh. I run this game as well, but I'm nowhere near as good as this guy, so you're going to get some pretty good gameplay here. So, speaking of when we talked to Fledge there, when he sets, he mentioned that we have to do that to set a certain flag that we'll need later on in the run. Using flags and like flag manipulation is going to be the biggest part of this run. And it's like 99% of the glitches that we do and skips that we do in this run. So we'll try to explain those as we go along.
Like a good chunk of the beginning portion is just kind of running around. Okay, I'm silly. All right, ignore me. It's just running around and doing some collections quest stuff. But after that, about like the first 20 minutes, we'll get into some like the crazy stuff. And I'm making some mistakes here, but all right. The more crazy stuff, the back in time is what it's called. You'll actually see it coming up here pretty soon because I'm running a different route than what's normal. Normally you'll do a route where you side hop out of a cutscene in the first 2 frames of it activating, because cutscenes take 2 frames to activate in this game. Kind of like a normal Zelda thing. But it's kind of inconsistent and you have to mash for it, so it's not really safe to do in a marathon setting. So we're actually going to go with a safer route here, and this route's going to involve me doing back in time really early compared to what normally happens. So we're going to do it right here, coming up actually. And I'm actually going to show off like how we do back in time with the Wii home menu on the first one go around here, but then after that I'll be pressing the normal Wii reset button, because that's what you normally use.
So what back in time is a way for us to access the title screen state of the game, which is actually kind of its own dummy file of the game, if you will, which is why it's playable. And on the topic that we were talking about earlier of setting of a flag and memory manipulation, what we're going to start with right now is an inventory flag, or basically just putting an item on our file. So to activate back in time here, we press continue after dying and then immediately reset the game. And Link just kind of falls into the title screen here. And if you look closely, it kind of has this like crazy bloom effect where everything's really washed out, and there's also this glitched cutscene. This is layer 28 of Skylofts, which isn't really used for anything except the title screen. And we on this state of the game, a goddess statue is open.
Still work? Maybe not. I might have to redo it, but
no, that'll work.
Okay. If you'll notice, that weird saving thing I did was I corrupted a file right there. That's why it doesn't have a title. That's why it doesn't have a file name, actually. Everything on that file is now set to 0. And that's going to be used for this little route, the safe route we're doing here. Normally, we would, like in the past, we would keep it for a lot of the run for some quick deaths. But we can't keep it very long in this one because we need a different file setup, unfortunately. But we'll get to see it once.
Also, if you look at the date of that file, it proves that Skyward Sword has been in production since January 1st of 2000, so a very long time. But here we come into the goddess statue and charge our Skyward Strike.
Start the file.
To get the goddess sword, and if we start our file just after that, it sets the game to give us the goddess sword just after starting our file. So you don't see it right now, but it requires a reload of the area, and we just happen to have that with this cutscene here with Bruce and his cronies, which unfortunately we skip. Some of the best music in the game. And voila, random sword. So now we can basically complete Skyloft more or less normally until saving our Loftwing, which really isn't that much.
And you'll notice a big thing I'm doing here is like I have to manage stamina quite a lot. Like you saw that I messed it up earlier. One of the biggest parts about this game and where you lose a lot of time is stamina management. For instance, every time I roll like that, it saves a singular frame, so that adds up very quickly over the entire course of a run. But there's also different loading zones. For some, it's better to run straight into them. For some, it's better to, for instance, there you're supposed to jump into it, and you'll come out with like negative or 0 speed actually, and that way you'll come in at a standstill. And when you come in at a standstill, you're able to do some different movement. In this loading zone here, I'm actually going to go in with, I'm going to run out of stamina when going in, and that's the fastest option there. So it's a little bit of a thing that you have to memorize when you're first starting out. It's just all the different stamina options you have.
It's not a huge deal, though. Very few loading zones are unique from wanting to enter them with 0 speed. Generally, you want to go into first-person mode into a loading zone or front hop into it, but there are a very select few loading zones in this game, like literally I could count them on one hand, where that's not the case. Most of them have a cutscene on the other side. So to give a quick, so hopefully you're not too confused with the title screen stuff that we're going to be doing later on in the run. The way that most of the stuff we're going to be doing in this game works is we are setting scene flags in certain areas. So if Bailey is in a certain area and then he goes into back in time and does something really random like pushing a box or talking to somebody or something like that, and starts his file, the flag will then gets set after he starts his file, depending on like what he does. It could be, like I said, pushing a box or talking to somebody. It could be a whole range of things. And because of that, it kind of tricks the game into actually setting the flag into where that file is actually located. So if in the case that he does a bunch of random stuff like that, that is most likely what's going to happen. However, we can also set, which we do on one occasion, I believe, set a story flag, which influence layers in this game.
I think a good way to think about it in a simple terms is basically every map in this game is built of the same building pieces, and basically in Back in Time we're able to just access those and apply them. So for instance, like going into a Sheikah Stone would set a cutscene flag that you've already seen this, so you don't have to watch it again. But on Skyview, for instance, that would do something completely different, like maybe open a door or something like that, and then you'd be able to just set certain stuff like that. But story flags are a little bit different. We're only able to set one, and you can't actually permanently set it, like he said. And right here, we're gonna do Back in Time again, and this is where the route kind of converges. We're gonna do something a little bit different, but it's normal stuff from here. Like we're gonna go ahead and copy this over like we did before. We're gonna go ahead and run up the top, and you'll notice when I'm bonking these trees, it's actually setting memory inside Back in Time. So when I bonk that tree, it opens these gates. And the file I bonk with is actually kind of important. For instance, like file 1 is the one we do it right here with, but from here on out, it's going to be file 2.
Don't you want to copy file 1 after bit saving?
I do it both times.
Oh, okay. Well, it makes sense. Doesn't waste any time.
A little bit safer. Okay, so right here we're actually gonna do like our first instance of an RBM, and that's just gonna be, or I guess the Goddess Sword was the same one, but this is gonna be the same thing as we did before, like where the sword like charged up. But instead we're just gonna do it with the practice sword right here. We actually have to be careful not to open any files during this cutscene.
Because if we do, it crashes.
And just like that, we have that onto our file, and we are good to go.
So that was a scene flag RBM, and while technically we don't need that scene flag for Skyloft, I mean, of course, we're already here, so why would we need to, you know, copy it back in time? The reason we need that is to activate the story flag of the Sheikah Stone rising up. Also, there's a counterfeit Goddess Sword standing there. Just ignore it. It's not the real one. And we need that Sheikah Stone cutscene to RBM a couple of different things later. It actually enables us to skip the claw shots, which would be probably something like a 20-minute detour.
We'd have to go all the way to Lineru.
So yeah, nasty stuff.
Also, if you want to read some donations, dude, this is probably a good chance. We got a pretty long cutscene right here.
Awesome, yeah, we have a couple donations to talk about. First, we have a $50 anonymous donation. It says, here's a little donation from France. Thanks to everyone involved in this event. Thank you very much. We also have a $40 donation from Tober, who says, I said I'd donate $10 per each of my deaths in Sunshine, but I'm doubling it because of how silly they were. Good luck to Bailey with Skyward Sword.
Appreciate it. Alright, so here we're just going to talk to more people because we're still doing the collect portion of this. I like to consider the beginning of this game kind of the same thing as Majora's Mask, like first cycle. So after we get Slingshot, this is where the game just insanely breaks, but we can't do too much before that, unfortunately. For instance, like there was a time where we were thinking about skipping the Slingshot even, but you can't actually use any of the B-wheel items without the Slingshot. The Slingshot unlocks it, so we're stuck chasing the Kikwis the entire game. We have to, unfortunately.
In this game, and it's been this way since the game was ever speedrunnable. Is that a word? I'll go with it.
I'll go with it.
I'll go with it. Since this game got a speedrun, since the beginning, there have been so many things that would save pretty massive amounts of time that simply don't work because of the tiniest, stupidest little thing. There are so many major skips that would work if it weren't for like one specific barrier. And on the flip side of that, there's also things that don't work because there's such a massive chain of dependencies that are required to make this thing happen, that it's just super unlikely that we could skip them.
Yeah. And you're gonna notice I did this dive right here. This skips a cutscene. Normally Fee will come out and talk to you about where this portal's opened on the map, but if you dive off of your bird and fly into it, like glide into it like that, you're actually able to skip that cutscene completely, and then it will never happen again either. That's the only time it can trigger. So now we are on to Farron, one of the funner spots. And a big thing, another like smallish thing actually, it's going to be when I'm going through text, you'll notice that it has the A button. So the only fast way to advance text in this game is to hold A through it and then release it and press it. So you can't just mash through text in this game, unfortunately. You have to focus on it a little bit more. I'm going to try to avoid all these Deku Babas here. Getting hit by him is not like a bad thing, but I'll get hit, of course. I'll show you the safety strat.
Another thing to note is that he's playing on the Japanese version. The reason for this is simply because of the way the text does scroll in this game. It scrolls character by character, and Japanese actually, for some reason, I think it both scrolls faster and it has less characters per.
It's like double the speed
per conversation. So. It saves a pretty sizable chunk of time.
I think it's like 5 minutes now. Yeah.
Over other versions. Yeah, over the specifically North American 1.0 version of this game, it saves about 5 or 6 minutes, and over any other version, it saves 8 or 9 minutes because English 1.0 or North American 1.0 has a version-specific glitch that allows for a whole different route that
It's-
sadly we can.
It's actually kind of funny because that route actually might be faster than the current one we do on JP, but text saves so much time over it that it's still slower.
Yeah, and it has always been that way. We're from a purely gameplay perspective. The English 1.0 version was faster, but simply because of text, the overall game is faster to play with Japanese. If text were instant in this game, this would be a less than 2-hour run, but
For sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Petition for Skyward Sword Remake to have instant text.
Just mash through it. Well,
That would be so
I'd want
nice.
back in time then. We'd need a reset button, unfortunately. So, a funny thing about that, so, like, I see the question a lot is, like, if Skyward Sword was remaked, would you speedrun it? And the unfortunate
Yes.
thing about that is, if it was remade, we actually wouldn't be able to do back in time, and even if they didn't patch it, it wouldn't be possible simply because there's no reset button on a Switch. Like, if they made it on the Switch, for example, the only reason back in time works is because of the reset button. If we didn't have one, it wouldn't be possible. So they could literally do nothing to the engine and back in time would still be impossible to perform simply due to the lack of a reset button.
There always is, however, the possibility of new consoles having reset buttons. But
Gross.
I find that quite equally as unlikely as a Skyward Sword remake ever happening.
Petition for it. Alright, now here comes the hardest trick in the game right here. This is the absolute hardest, is placing this waypoint on this X. Never know if he'll get it or not. And we did it first try. Okay. Never
It
mind.
nails it like a boss. Okay, so that means the rest of the run is a breeze.
Easily. You can do some more donations for a little bit here, Newt.
Just long text.
Yeah.
All right, we don't have any new donations. However, I would like to plug a bid war that's coming up. The next game following Skyward Sword is going to be Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll. And we have a bid war for Monkey Choice. Currently, Gon Gon, our boy, is in the lead with $6. If you don't want to see Gon Gon, it'll only take $7 for the 3 other choices, I, Baby, or Mimi.
You're gonna notice something here. Not only does Hero Mode allow us to skip cutscenes, it also powers up our Skyward Strike to the same power it would have as the Master Sword at the end of the game. So most fights are going to be completed just like that with a singular Skyward Strike. So
And
what normally...
Another advantage for Hero Mode, for the speedrun that is that we take double damage, which is very useful for activating back in time, which you're going to see a lot of in this run, so buckle in.
And get ready, like get used to the heart beeping as well, because we're going to stay down at about 2 hearts quite a lot. And like a big thing right here, for instance, is I'm not going to actually activate this bird statue right here, because it's going to show that the cutscene activates it, but until you check it, it's not activated, and that's, if me not doing that right there allows one of the biggest tricks in this game to happen at the end of the game. And like small stuff like that, as Deesh was talking about earlier, is what was blocking us before. The amount of stuff that has to line up for this route that we have going on right now is absolutely crazy. There's so many like small things to mitigate and just make sure that you're not messing up. And if you like the slightest things, like for instance, there's some back in times we do, and if you mess up camera movement, you mess them up and you instantly lose like a minute and a half because you have to completely restart because you'll load into a cutscene that's not actually supposed to happen. So here's the little Kikwi chasing section. We're going to be doing this for a little bit here. We're almost done with the collect quest though. Getting there.
This is a fairly vanilla portion of the game, but we will get to see some cool stuff coming up after this. But I have to say, this is what I love about a speedrun. Just good, clean execution.
Movement is the biggest part here.
Yeah, just the need for good, clean execution and movement is something that it's a huge turn on for me in a speedrun. And it's a big part of this game, so...
Like, a big chunk of what makes the world record so good currently is just movement specifically. Like, SVA's movement compared to almost everyone else is insane. He just executes everything perfectly almost. And, like, his text is perfect. It's really crazy the amount of optimizations that he's fit into such like a small run. And it's mainly because the movement in this game got so optimized back when it was 5 hours long, because it took us a very long time to find all these skips and stuff that shortened it to the length it's at now. So when movement is refined to that point, it actually transfers over when the run is shortened still, obviously. So when it got shortened to the point it was, like, under the world record at the time when we weren't really able to do all this back in time stuff where it was over 5 hours, the movement, and it was like almost perfect through the entire thing, and that's just kind of transferred over to now, and that's why. And SVA was one of the top runners back then, so he just kind of came back, played like he used to, just kind of stuck from there.
Yeah, in fact, the time that SVA has is so good that it's actually impossible to beat it without getting a certain trick that's coming up soon. I mean, there has been a route change since then, so
Maybe
it is pretty close, but it's still such an absurdly good run. Like, no one's even within a minute of it.
Yeah, at all.
In fact, I think the next best time is almost 2 minutes slower.
Yeah, the 2:11.
But it comes with experience, because SVA has been running this game for so long, and he's found a lot of great comparisons. So shout out to SVA.
He tests quite a lot of stuff that, like, a lot of people wouldn't even think to test. Ooh, I got that fast.
Ooh, yeah.
And
if
a big
you roll
thing.
through, certain crawl spaces, you can just come out right out to the other side, pretty fast.
Or like when we were talking about movement here, so another small thing that you'll hardly ever notice is me falling off of this rope. If I like, I'll hit Z a lot here and, like, Z target. Starting movement with a Z target is actually a lot faster than just, like, normally walking off of it, and it saves, like, because Link does this little charge up animation when he starts to run or stuff like that. But if you land and press Z, then the amount of charge up time he has is actually drastically decreased. So, like, that's like, if you ever see me Z targeting in random spots, it looks kind of weird. That's the main reason I'm doing that right there. It's just some movement tech.
There's actually if you bonk into that tree, there is a single frame between killing those bokoblins and the cutscene starting, where this Kikwi Lapsa calls down to you. There's a single frame that you can roll into the tree and knock him down, early, which sounds like it would save a lot of time, but we still have to talk to him and go through basically that whole cutscene and this, and it actually looks pretty weird, but it only saves about a second.
There's
Worth it to go for.
There's quite a few, like, one-frame tricks like that in this run that we don't actually go for. Like, for instance, there was one, like, in Earth Temple a while back. It's called Lava Hop, and when a cutscene would start, Link could stand on lava and have a single frame to hop off of it. And in the old route, it saved a ton of time, but I'm not sure how much it would save currently, but it'd still be pretty insane if people went for that. Like, these one-frame tricks would save time, but they're just not really RTA viable. And it would be interesting to see a task of this, but unfortunately we really don't have task tools for it, and there's no real way to make them. And the only reason why is because all the motions and, like, the range of inputs that you can get from a Wii Motion Plus don't really translate well to an emulator, unfortunately. So no one's really made a tool that allows you to input swings and stuff like that frame by frame. Okay. Here.
May I get some donations in?
Yep, you're good.
So we have a $6 donation from Talcarace that says $6. What could this mean? We have another $6 donation from Talcarace that says, what could it mean? $6. We have another $6 donation from Talcarace that says, oh, whoops, did I accidentally make the Monkey Bid War a 4-way tie? That the Monkey Bid War for Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll is now a 4-way tie. We have a $5 donation from Calm Down Sam, who says, shout out to the runner and his amazing community. His streams never fail to entertain, and he's a great representative for Skyward Sword. Good luck on the run, Bailey, and remember what Sheikah Stones do. And we have one more donation. We have a $50 donation from Ulvin, who says $3,000. With that, we have hit our second goal for the marathon, $3,000. I can't believe it. This is absolutely crazy. Thank you all so much for your donations, your generous donations. With that, I think we're going to push our next goal to 4,500. Let's beat Midwinter.
It's really amazing, guys. Thank you for all the support. Okay. So, Deesh mentioned a trick earlier that saves a minute and a half, I'm pretty sure, if you get it. And it is only a 25% chance that it will work. So we're going to hope that RNG will be nice to us. And the way you know if it worked is I will fly at speed Mach 5 towards Skyview. And it's called Extending Blow, so if you've seen it before, you know, but it involves launching a Bokoblin back with a spin attack, and what he does is he lands right on the very edge, to the point where the game actually considers him dead but alive at the same time. So what happens is when you do a ending blow on an enemy in that state, it sends Link at an incredible speed towards 0-0 on the map, and that just happens to be right in front of Skyview. I think there's another location where it might be useful, but there's no real setup for it, but I'm not really sure where that is. But this is definitely the most...
Elden.
Yeah.
It was in Elden with the 5 key pieces, but it's useless now because we RBM it.
Yeah. Oh. Pepega.
There's actually a... I think it's frame perfect. I'm not 100% sure. It's actually a little bit easier, but you could, if you call Phi just before the seed hits the vine there, you can actually skip the cutscene and the Phi text.
You just get a different Phi text that's a little bit slower,
Yeah,
or a little bit faster. I mean, I'm convinced that trick's basically impossible. By the way, I can't get it.
I got it against Chimera. So.
Me and Exta are fully convinced that you can't do that.
I mean, if I can do it, and I
guess
if I can do it.
Okay, so what we're gonna stun this guy right here. You want to get to a specific position right here. And unfortunately, we did not get it. He was a little bit too close.
So that is an RNG trick. It just depends on how far he flies off your sword, really. If he bounces, if he like flies off from the spin attack just right and bounces on the very edge of the void there, he'll be considered dead, but you'll still be able to final blow him, and yeah, then it sends you to 0-0 coordinates on the map, which is right in front of Skyview Temple on this particular map.
And what I just did right there is actually the backup for that. So what you can do is you can angle a Bokoblin like that, and then do a Skyward Strike, and with the upward angle, the Skyward Strike can hit that Goddess Cube from down below, and you're able to skip like an entire section where you have to run on ropes. And that little jump slash I did right there, there's a 40-second fee cutscene right there, but you're able to barely jump slash out of it if you jump off that ledge at the right angle. So I was able to jump slash and skip it and just completely go into the dungeon like this. And now is where we get a little bit crazy with Back in Time. So we're gonna get really friendly with the bat after we save over here. Then we're gonna do some movement stuff.
Something worth noting is that after all this memory manipulation with Back in Time was found to be possible, it actually opened the way for, just because there was so much more attention being given to this game, it opened the way for even more like potential tricks and skips to be found that would actually have been possible
In the
prior
past.
to the discovery of all this. So it just makes it even better.
And I hit C up right there because it saves like 5 frames to die in C up because it cuts a little bit off of Link's death animation. So what we're going to do here is, this file 2 is saved in the early game, right after that Zelda cutscene. And it's able to manipulate some stuff on this back in time map. And that's why when I bonk that tree, it activates all the flags. And that's what opens these doors. So all I have to do now is just run up here. We're going to do this. If we save and start at the same time, it's actually going to warp me inside Skyview in a different location. Right here. So what that causes is it warped me to the location where that statue would be if it was placed on this map. So you're able to apply the coordinates from Skyloft back in time into the current map you're loaded onto, and that's how bit warps work. And all you have to do for that is just saving and starting it at the same time. So that was the exact coordinates where that statue is, and it's just kind of moved it from Skyloft straight down, and that's pretty nice. And the only reason we come in here is for these boards and to reload the area, because some stuff is deloaded when that happens.
So slashing those and breaking those boards activates another scene flag that we need to have set for a back in time later.
And this is one of the, like, if you're planning on starting this game, that right there is one of the hardest tricks that you'll learn in the beginning, is avoiding that spider. And I wish I was playing about that because it took me a long time myself. If you die at any point right now before saving, you will be sent back to where you originally saved on this file, and that would be at the beginning of Skyview, so I would have to do that entire bit warp again. So deaths in this game, when they're not intended, are very costly.
Though there is a pretty easy safety strap for it, but
No one does it.
yeah, no one does it. Also, somebody apparently discovered a way to clip under the ground in this room during this fight, but they weren't able to get it on video, and no one has replicated it since. It appeared to be a possible boss key skip, but sadly, close but no cigar.
Yeah. I talked to him. They came on my stream at one point, and I talked to him a little bit about it. And they said that they talked about it in like the Skyward Sword Discord, but no one's been able to replicate it, unfortunately. With that, it would be pretty crazy, because we would skip this entire section that I'm about to do right now, including this. We probably wouldn't even do the RBM anymore, huh? Deesh.
No, I don't think so. Actually, that would open up
Quite a lot,
some
for sure.
pretty different routing possibilities. Anyway, after getting off on that tangent, I always thought that this was such a cool, clever puzzle.
Yeah.
That you have to hit the same crystal, except with the beetle, that you did to get in there in the first place.
Definitely don't want to admit how long that took me to figure out as a kid.
You're not alone.
So, along with those boards, we're also going to need to collect another scene flag, and that's going to be this rupee up here. Let's see if we can get in unscathed. Nope, not good enough. Sometimes you can get under there and not hit the wall, but it's pretty hard. And another random thing about the beetle is you'll notice I'll fly up high and then I'll like shoot it downwards. And that actually makes the beetle go faster. So when the beetle has more of a downward velocity, the speed it has increases by a pretty good amount. So what you want to do is go a lot higher than you normally need to. And then go ahead and shift it downwards. And I had to make it to this statue pretty fast because I need that Bokoblin to still be there when I come back in this load. When I come back on a different save file, but I'll copy it over here basically. And the only reason that works is because that Bokoblin, before he hits the death barrier, or the death zone in the void, if you're able to save it beforehand, he's actually still considered alive. So we're gonna do another back in time here, using file 3, like we did earlier. This one's gonna be the first like real RBM that's gonna change some stuff, and this is where it gets a little bit crazy.
Yeah, so this is the one we were talking about earlier, where we need to open. We need to copy. Anyway, this is the first, or this is what we were talking about earlier when we needed the. That's the corrupt file.
I know. That's fine. You're supposed to save it. Yeesh, I got it. Watch. I promise you we're chilling. Wait, what?
Yeah, you're supposed to copy. You're supposed to copy because the Skyview file is what has that scene flag. So no biggie, he can just die and do it again.
Okay. So just do what? Save?
Because the Skyview file is the one that, or because our file 1 is what has that story flag set. So we need to have file 1 copy to file 3 first, and then copy after bit saving.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, okay, yeah, that's my bad. I completely forgot something, yeah. You stopped for a second, I was like, what did I mess up?
Yeah, no big deal though. Just
that's just some slight time loss, yeah.
Again. Thankfully, it's a short one, so it's not like it's gonna make him miss the estimate or anything. So we actually copy file 1 again after this back in time or bit save. So that we have a quick death for the next back in time we need to do.
Okay, that's fine.
That was too early.
Was it? What do you mean too early? Like I rolled in too early?
Yeah.
Alright, we're gonna... Alright. I'll do it again. Dude! I'm sorry I'm messing up. Alright, that's fine. I need to chill out. Okay.
So yeah, this is why we did the RBM for the practice sword.
For this to work, yeah.
Because it activates the story flag that allows this to spawn. And there's a couple of things we can do back in time to update certain flags. For example, as you've seen him do a couple times, bonking the tree updates the scene flags for the for whichever file he has selected when he bonks into it, because it's an environment change. And saving in back in time updates the story flags.
I just wanted to make sure y'all knew how to do this appropriately, so just wanted them to do it multiple times, I guess. Alright. That hit the life seed. Are you serious?
Just gotta turn your camera away from it there.
Again. Oh.
Just first time doing the route things, that's alright.
Yeah, well, I practice this. Okay, it's fine. No worries. I messed up. Alright. No worries at all. Some small stuff here.
So this RBM actually has a pretty funny effect.
That's why I'm making sure it works here, because I want y'all to see the funny stuff. Because like, it's not even required per se. Like I'm definitely kind of going above and beyond. Like if you failed it the first time, you could just go forth and just go on with the run. It really wouldn't affect anything. But I want to make sure y'all see the funny stuff. It's the most important part.
there's absolutely, the only reason we do this RBM actually is for the file copy, because doing it during this cutscene is faster than just saving and quitting and then copying it over. Otherwise, this RBM would actually be slower, and we don't get the funny thing that's about to come up.
That's more like it. Okay, this time we are good. We are good to go.
Start it first.
There we go. I can remember how to play the game.
Work.
Okay.
So from here we just go on and get the boss key.
Pretty normal stuff here. A weird thing is like, what the hell? A weird thing are these vines. Like, the way the momentum works on them is kind of tricky in some spots. So, for instance, like one of the people in the community made as a joke, like a Vine tutorial, because when you start running this game pretty early on, like you'll end up hitting it at the wrong times, and you'll lose quite a bit to some slow Vine movement like that. But A big thing here is there's actually supposed to be a puzzle where you use the beetle to open this gate right there. But what you can do is jump on this vine again and take an angle. And if you get enough speed, you're able to just go straight back the way you came. Just like that.
Also, these boss keys, they're pretty fun puzzles, but they spawn in the exact same position every time, so there's no need to worry about missing them. They're pretty easy to memorize as well.
Mm-hmm. So we're actually coming up on one of the hardest bosses in the game right here. That RBM just gives us a very slight advantage, and I wanted to make sure I got it so we wouldn't mess it up in the marathon setting at all. That's why I decided to opt to lose the time. So we're gonna go ahead and just leave because we don't have time for him right now. We lost a little bit too much time doing that RBM, so we're gonna go ahead and just skip him because it's too slow to go ahead and fight him right now.
We'll come back. We'll come back to him later because, you know, it's kind of rude to just skip past him like that. Like, he just wanted a high five.
Yeah. He even went for it, too. We just kind of ignored him, unfortunately.
But we come back to oblige him. Don't worry.
I love that RVM. That's probably my favorite one in the run.
I know. It's so funny.
Okay. So what we're going to do here is save and quit after all this stuff, and we're actually going to do some more RBMings. This run, like, heavily involves back in time, like I said earlier. And we're going to do a lot of manipulation. And there's some other stuff that, like, normally, like Deesh mentioned earlier, that we found some tricks that we could have done in the past that would save some time. And this is one of them right here, is applying the map pieces inside back in time and then starting files. And that's something we've been able to do for a while, but we just never really realized it.
Yeah, we were always able to do this, and it was known that this was possible, but it was never found to be useful or always thought to require pre-made files, which are not allowed for obvious reasons because you're not starting directly from a new game in the run or a new hero mode game. But this is the one example that I was talking about earlier of a story flag RBM, which sadly we can't activate arbitrarily. If we could, this run would be something like a half an hour long. But we can't, which honestly I prefer because
a mistake. It's fine. I can just bunk through the tree.
Just be careful not to activate the cutscene.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna be an issue now. It'll be fine. We're good though.
Yeah.
So I had to make sure that I didn't hit a cutscene over there, and like I mentioned earlier that like some slight camera movement mistakes will ruin like an entire RBM, and that's what actually happened earlier. Huh?
Be sure to get a stamina fruit too, by the way.
Yeah, I will.
With file 1. So yeah, these story flag RBMs.
Nope, I hit it. That's a mistake. I gotta reset. Hitting, the camera stuff there is a big issue.
Yeah, that flag that activates that FI text is only on file 3. So if we can avoid setting any flags with file 3 until about the latest possible moment,
and it's
when
actually
we're not
funny.
Even facing that way anymore. That's ideal.
The thing that soft locks us right there. So when I restart, because that feed text happens, what happens is she warps me to a little part in back in time where there's the life seed is buried, and that's like not something that you're supposed to get way later in the game. But that actually used to be one of the biggest breaks we used in the run, was getting that to happen. And now it's literally an annoyance. Like it's went from the biggest break to one of the biggest mistakes in an insane amount of time.
It's still useful in 100%.
All right. There we go. That's more like it. Okay.
So these story flag RBMs are only doable under certain circumstances. We need to, for the very few that we can do, we need to be already in a position where we can activate the event in normal play. So a couple things to note. Obviously, the bonk to update our flag so that the gates to the academy are open. It's just a little faster than having to run off the edge. And collecting a rupee, stamina fruit, or heart will give us the items from whichever file we collect it with. So specifically, we have the ruby tablet with file 1. And if we put it in here, then
The cutscene will play.
we can go into this cutscene, and it's pretty much the same thing as the RBMs we did earlier. We start our file just before the flag gets set, which is just after this next camera change here.
Okay. And
That'll work.
yeah. The thing is that's not going to come into play for a very, very long time. You won't notice it until like use it, and that's not going to be for probably another solid hour. But that right there is a big exploit for sure.
So yeah, one thing to note is that we do that on file 2, not file 1. It would probably be useful on file 1, but we need to have that on file 2. We will explain that later when we come to what that is used for, but it is imperative that we have that. Otherwise, we have to do some crazy route that takes like almost 4 hours.
Personally, I just think it's kind of fun to watch the cutscene twice. You know.
Yeah.
You always.
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's why we do it. I just went into a whole spiel about flags and things that we need to do and set and stuff, but yeah, it's just preference really. Kappa.
So, coming up is the Elden section, and Elden is probably the hardest part, like the hardest area in the run, I would say. Like personally, for me, it is.
Objectively,
Yeah.
it's not personal; it's objective.
Like Earth Temple is really punishing for small stuff, so once we get into there, I'm probably gonna get a little quiet. She'll have to help me out with some commentary, but
I got you.
Elden,
That's what I'm here for.
the main issue is a lot of mistakes can be like rectified because you'll just fall into a void. Like for instance, in Skyview, if you mess up, like you just fall into a void. But in Elden, you just straight die. Like it's just a death, and then a death in like an untimely place can lead to a lot of small, pretty big mistakes. Because like, I think, for instance, like every death that isn't intentional, I think is a minute or something like that. Just around there. So doing everything in Earth Temple really well is very crucial. So right here, you'll notice that I drank that potion a little bit earlier, and that is very crucial because we are going to be taking some heart damage here, but not before we save.
So there's no particular requirement for the potion itself, but the empty bottle that the potion gives us is required. Technically, there's another one we can get, but it's way too out of the way, so we can try it. So you killed the Chew.
I know.
poor Chew, you just threw it into the lava.
We didn't want to deal with him.
It just wanted a hug.
Dude, he hugs too hard and he's hot. I'm sorry. But you know, honestly,
that sounds
Deesh,
like a good thing.
I think Elden's kind of boring, so I'm gonna try to skip a bit of it. Is that okay with you? Are you fine with that?
I mean, what you do, you man.
All right.
It's all up to you.
I'm just not.
You're the one running.
I just feel like we're going kind of slow. We need to make sure that we pick up the pace a little bit. You know, just Elden is boring, and we don't want to go through Elden. So I'm gonna go through the floor.
Oh, you fell out of bounds.
I know. Bad. So right there, what we did was I bit warped underneath a goddess cube. So that statue actually is right underneath the goddess cube, and it pushes you straight under bounds into this loading zone. So that entire top section of Elden is just out. You don't have to worry about it.
The positioning for that is somewhat precise, but there's a pretty large like area that you can be in to hit it. So you shouldn't have to worry about that ever really, as long as you're just basically directly
he got stuck.
So yeah, another usage of hero mode's utterly overpowered Skyward Strike.
I don't know why they went with that. It's really interesting.
It was probably just like to give a perk to hero mode because actually speaking of hero mode, one thing we said was that it could skip all the cutscenes. The only reason it can is because we've already watched them on normal mode, on the normal mode file. So if we say somehow skip a cutscene at some point in the game, and then on normal mode, and then come back and go through that cutscene in hero mode, we won't be able to skip it. So that's kind of why that mechanic is there, is so that we don't have to go through cutscenes we've already watched.
Make it a little bit easier to play through it. The Skyward Strikes, not only is it good for like the small fights like that, there's also multiple boss fights that get basically completely broken. Oh, I missed circles, I'm sorry.
If you roll into that cutscene just the right way, Link will run around in a bunch of circles, and it saves 5 hours.
Mm-hmm. It's a very big time save. Unfortunately, I missed it. Like, for instance, like when I fight Scaldera coming up, we're going to utilize Skyward Strikes quite a lot, and it definitely helps with the damage. And there's one that it completely just destroys the second phase of it, to the point where it's basically, like, the fight just becomes way easier than what it originally was casually. Okay, so right here, we're going to do another back in time. And this one's going to be another RBM, and it's going to do something really cool. Hopefully I don't fail this one.
So this one actually requires us to get into the nighttime state of back in time, which we can only access with file 2. So basically the layers we have available to us are this layer that we're on, and we can only load into nighttime back in time with file 2, because with any other file, basically any file that's saved between getting the Hero's Tunic and Skykeep, which is the large majority of the game, is layers 4 for daytime and 5 at nighttime, and both of those layers crash. But nighttime with a file that has not obtained the Hero's Tunic is layer 3, I believe.
It's 3.
Layer 3, okay, which we can access. So no
early.
crash.
It still works. It still works. I've done it this before. I've tested that.
Yeah,
I
had that happen to me, and I just gave up.
It's
because I thought that I was supposed to.
No, it's
so yeah, that RBM is for he had to push the gravestone. That opens the door to Betro's house, and if anyone knows Betro, shout out to Betro, by the way, absolute legend.
He's gonna help us out later.
Yeah. So that actually that corresponds to what ends up being another pretty funny effect, especially if you're playing in English. It's a shame we're playing in Japanese right now because the cutscene that we're about to see is pretty.
Yeah, it's really good.
It makes it even funnier. But nonetheless, we can tell you what they're talking about. Because as speedrunners, we're required to learn Japanese.
We have to, yeah. Actually, yeah, I learned... You notice when I pick the text options, I always pick the fastest one, because I learned the entire language to make sure that I always pick the fastest text option.
Yeah, fun fact, Bailey is fluent in every single language that the world knows. I wish I knew the exact number so that joke had even better comedic effect, but I don't.
Don't ask me to speak them or read them, though, because I won't show it to other people. I only keep it to myself.
Yeah, and you gotta concentrate on the one.
Okay, so right here, we're just going to do some normal stamina management, get past these little bokoblins up here. Deesh, but what if that did fail? I'm kind of worried.
No big deal. Because, again, like, there's no reason. Yeah.
Deesh, the door's not open.
Then
Yeesh. The door's
Have to do
supposed
it
to be
again.
open.
So yeah, what these guys are talking about right now is how they're gonna get inside this massive temple here, which it appears that they have whoever is in the temple has destroyed the key or shattered it into 5 pieces, and they need to find the 5 shards. But those guys know that they can just dig their way in.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, we
we
can't dig our way in. So what we need to do is run straight at the door.
and just go in there. Yeah. We don't need anything. We don't need holes. We don't need key pieces. We don't need anything like that. We just go in there.
So introducing the usage of camera manipulation in this game. Basically anything that's off screen in this game, any actors, so anything that's like on a cycle, enemies, any of that it basically freezes if it's far enough off of the screen. And so those platforms, we can get a good cycle. We can get a good cycle and just get right over to this part by turning our camera around there, and it saves a few seconds.
Unfortunately, like sometimes the keys can body you too. And what I was trying to do there with those rolls and jumps is, if you strike that and then you jump on like in a specific time frame, you're actually able to skip that cutscene of the bridge lowering.
Yeah, you have to jump so that you're just
In the
you
air.
have to roll so that you're jumping like after the thing is actually hit.
So we're gonna ignore the lizard because he's slow. So the lizard's no fun to play with anyway, so we're just gonna run on by him. We'll kill his friends in a minute, but we're just gonna go ahead and move on.
Casually just, yeah, I'm gonna kill your friends. No big deal.
No big deal
Just
at all.
My
So-
day-to-day activities.
The biggest part that like messes me up is this trick coming up, like not this RBM, but these two things after the fact. They're pretty tricky, and but they're really flashy to go for, so of course I've got to do them. But
So we're actually going to go for the identical RBM to the one that we just did to get into Earth Temple.
same way.
And what this one does is it raises the bridge to get to the next part of the dungeon without us having to go around do this whole ball rolling section, and it's really slow. But another thing to note is that this also sets a story flag. So there's, for those of you who know the game, you have the light tower and the thunderhead. And after beating the first 3 dungeons and doing a whole long quest, you need to activate the light tower to open the thunderhead. The light tower is a scene flag on Skyloft, which we actually already have set the equivalent scene flag in Earth Temple. So when Bailey does this RBM and activating that scene flag then activates the story flag for the thunderhead to be open. So when he does that right there, it actually it updates all of the scene flags that he has set, and that includes the scene flag for the light tower to be up, which in turn activates the story flag for the thunderhead to be open. And there's a computer science lesson for the day. So yeah, we'll basically just be able to go.
Oof.
Well done.
that was very
just
close to failing, but it works still. Okay, let's do it.
So yeah, just after this dungeon, we'll be able to go straight to the Thunderhead to do stuff we need to do.
So we're gonna push that out and then back in right there. So what I did was I pushed that bomb very slightly out of the tunnel and I backed back into the tunnel. And what that does is the game normally triggers a cutscene right there to blow up those rocks. And when it's barely out, it can't trigger the cutscene. But I also can't get hit by it at the same time. So when I go back into it, I'm just barely so far in that the bomb can't hit me, and the bomb is barely so far out that the cutscene can't play. So it's in this little kind of perfect spot.
Also, what he did when jumping off of that boulder onto that little ledge up on the side was it skipped a text sequence with the magma, and it saves a few seconds, so worth it to go for if you know how to, but I'm bad, so I don't go for it.
Funny thing is like for the longest time that was actually considered TES only, but it's pretty free.
Yeah, that's been around for a while, and like just nobody really ever tried it. Or it was considered, I don't think TES only, but just too hard to go for in a run. There were a lot of stuff that was like that for a while, and I think still is even.
That's what's fun about the route getting shorter, or the time getting shorter, is that a lot of tricks considered like too risky or anything like that are surfacing now, and they're like being shown off more in runs. Like I know Tila was thinking about doing beetle skip, but I don't know if he'll actually go for it.
Now that one is actually TES.
You can actually completely skip the beetle like that I got way earlier, but the requirements to do that are insane.
Yeah, the only uses for it are the scene flag for that red rupee in Skyview, and getting the rope cut in here, which we can only reach by an obscenely precise skyward strike into a keys, which then follows through and hits that rope. It's terrible.
And that RBM, like Dee said earlier, it raised the stairs, but if you don't realize what that skipped the entire section where you run around on the ball, like in this giant U. You don't have to do any of that now, because we just go ahead and raise those stairs, and that makes this dungeon a lot funner, in all honesty, or more fun.
A lot less boring, at least. Because that was never a fun time in the run for me. I always enjoyed the run in general, but that was the part that would have put me to sleep if it was any. So yeah, and speaking again of TAS only or too hard to go for strats in a run, we actually always were able to skip that ball rolling section in theory, because there's a frame perfect trick where when Link is in a cutscene but standing on lava, he won't like die right away. The cutscene takes priority, so Link's just kind of standing on the surface of the lava, and we have one frame between the cutscene and when Link gets his butt burned by the lava where we could front hop. And if we set it up just right, we could actually hop onto a platform on the other side of that ball rolling section and then die and respawn, and that just spawns the ball at the very end of that. Saved a lot of time, but it was just so impossible to go for.
Also, when I went up that, just real quick, when I went up that slope earlier, you'll notice that like Link was grunting a lot. That's called stutter sprinting. That slope is actually too large for you to normally run up. But if you stutter sprint up it, you're able to get up the entire thing, because normally there's a puzzle with the beetle where you have to hit a bomb with the beetle or something like that and blow up some rocks up there. But doing it that way, you're able to just go up the entire way with skipping the puzzle completely.
Imagine not doing the dungeon the way that the developers intended.
And that's not even that hard to do either. You just have to mash the A button.
No, yeah, it's very easy to figure out.
Okay, so now this is one of the funner bosses. More fun.
/S.
If I get it quickly. So there's a strategy here called the tricycle or tricycle. We call it the tricycle. There's a little GIF. I don't know if anyone has it.
Oh, you know what? Let me ask for it real quick.
You gotta find. There's a GIF of, because someone mispronounced it as tricycle one time, and someone made a GIF of Skyward riding a tricycle, and the meme is stuck. But we've recently found some new strategies to make it a lot faster and more consistent. So as long as everything kind of works in my favor here, we should be good to go.
So here we have our friend Girahim, who we skipped giving a high five to earlier, and he's mad at us, so he sends a giant flaming boulder of fire and death and anger towards us, which also happens to be a spider. And has it kill it, and tries to have it kill us. But in an ideal world, we would be too good for this thing to kill us. But this thing, I don't know, it can be a bit of a bugger. So let's see.
All right. Hit him with a spin, 360.
So this boss has a very specific attack pattern that you want to do against it with Skyward strikes and normal attacks and spin attacks.
RNG kind of got me here. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm not gonna be able to do
It's a
it
shame.
perfectly now.
If you're quick enough, the RNG factor of this fight is really non-existent, but it's
so hook it up.
it's super difficult to be quote unquote quick enough. So this fight can just be a little bit of pain sometimes.
And also, when he rolls up like this, you can. Oh, missed it. It's fine. You can get a Skyward Strike in there. And he should be on his last hit here. Okay. So,
Nice.
not
Still a very
perfect,
good
but
fight.
he sometimes because that mitigates RNG as much as it can, but sometimes even then it'll still get you.
Okay, so the GIF that we were talking about. By the way, do I have permission to post a quick link to Imager in chat?
I think you should be.
Perhaps.
Sure, go for it.
Okay, thank you.
Also, Newt, while I'm running up, you can do some donations.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's incredible.
Why?
So this GIF. No, it's the GIF.
Oh, the GIF. Okay.
So yeah, the GIF. That was made about the quote-unquote tricycle or three-cycle Scaldera fight.
I do have a donation to read too, if I may.
Yep. Good.
Absolutely.
We have $11 from Ulvind, who says, adding a couple more towards naming Charizard Barbecue, because you know the French are not going to let that slide. Good luck on your run, Bailey.
Thank you.
So no fancy back in time stuff just yet for after this dungeon.
Just gonna go on
just-
Thunderhead.
Yeah, we just go on pretty normally, and then pretty normally we just cancel at the prompt to saving and go straight to the Thunderhead.
A funny
Which,
thing is,
if you caught earlier, was opened by the RBM if you didn't Earth Temple.
a funny thing too is when I failed extending blow, not only did I lose time earlier, I also lost time right here when I go to the sky. So there's a Fee cutscene that's gonna play, and she's gonna talk to me and explain where that Goddess Cube, because they open chests on Skyloft. So it explains where that Goddess Cube chest opened up. So what's up?
No, nothing. You go.
Okay. So when this cutscene right here plays, oh, I know what you did. Okay. When this plays, we have to cancel out all of this. But if we get extending blow, we never actually hit the Goddess Cube. Thus, this cutscene never plays. So it not only does it save time earlier, it saves time here. So that trick is very heavy on time save, and the fact that it's RNG is really hurts.
It's actually very easy to get proper execution for it. It's just like if the Goblin doesn't want to bounce right, then that's up to him.
The setups aren't even that precise, in all honesty. It's just more of praying for the bounce, for sure. This loading zone's terrible, by the way.
Yeah, it's
We got in
so
there fast for once.
So, one thing to note, since we can RBM certain scene flags, which may be set to things like a door opening, or, for instance, one that we're going to do later is a silent realm spawning. So why don't we do it for the Farron trial, or silent realm? Well, the Farron trial, let me try that again. The Farron trial is unique in that Farron has to be on a certain layer of the game, layer 3 or 4, for the trial to spawn. So and layer 3 is set by us getting the Pharaoh's Courage song from here after this puzzle. So we have to, we basically end up having to come here just for that, so we can do the Farron trial later.
Yeah. In this route, we actually end up playing the song to get into Farron Trial. So we would have to get it regardless. So like even RBMing this one, like there's no way to get around collecting this. We have to come through Thunderhead, unfortunately. There's a like one. Oh, we got it! Wow. Okay, so there's like a singular frame to side hop right there to get out of the cutscene. We were actually able to get it right there, so it's nice.
And the RBM for it is slow, so so it's a shame. Also, there's an even more precise trick there that we could do to kind of skip that whole sequence of the pushing the little, I don't know what to call that, whatever it is for the puzzle for the bridge, but I don't know. You probably don't want to know what it takes to get it.
Nah,
it's like
you have to.
It's like it's an obscenely precise roll into the crawl space while like I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it.
Like the platform is
basically
moving while you're on it, and you have to like shoot into it while it's moving. It's insane. There's a video on it somewhere, but I don't remember what it's called, unfortunately.
It's on ZSR.
Okay, so we're actually, if you remember the RBM we did earlier, where we placed the Elden tablet, we're actually gonna do the same one again here, but with the linear tablet here. So we're gonna go out to File 2. Bonk the tree in the right spot. This tree doesn't like to be bonked in the wrong spot sometimes.
None of them
Okay.
do.
The trees are picky in this game, I swear. It's insane.
There's actually one on the other side of the bridge to the village in all dungeons. It's like so precise you basically need your own setup for it. It's so dumb.
Okay.
But anyway, this is any percent, so
We don't have to deal with that at least.
yeah, so we don't have to.
Also, another thing you'll notice is like sometimes I'm checking statues right after going out of the title screen. Opening the title screen is the exact same thing as just opening File 3. So right there I had to check that bird statue with File 3, but just doing it out of the title screen does the exact same effect.
Yeah, it's the same. Like it opens whichever file you have, or whatever is the last file you have data on. So for us it's File 3, but if we didn't have anything on File 3, then it would be File 2, and if we didn't have anything on File 2, it would be on File 1. And well, if we didn't have any of those, then I'm not sure what it would load. Probably nothing.
Yeah. Okay, so same RBM again, like we're gonna start at the exact same timing as well.
Yeah. It's the same thing, just on File 1 instead.
And this one actually isn't even required, it's just a little bit faster. And that's because we're going to spawn at a statue down here right next to where we jump off normally. So instead of running all the way up there and back down, all we have to do is just go this way.
So the reason that saves so much time is because normally what we would do is we would fly back to Skyloft from the Thunderhead, which takes a pretty long time, and then place the tablet, and then there's some phi text, and then we have to exit the goddess statue, and we have to jump off at a pretty weird platform, so that we avoid another cutscene, and it's just really long. So we combine a bit save there, which happens to be really close to the platform we need to jump off there, with the early linear pillar, and it saves a bunch of time, and it's very nice.
So for this one, if you remember, we talked about Betro earlier.
Shout out.
We're actually gonna go get some crayons from him. This is nothing besides getting crayons. And I know that sounds weird, but it's crayons, I'm telling you. And if you say crayons, you're wrong. It's crayons. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do another RBM. So we're gonna go back in time like normal, and we're gonna go over to his house. But since we already did some stuff like on File 1 and all that, his door should already be open when we check it with the statue with File 3. So all we're gonna do is open this. Then all I have to do is check a statue and run on over there. And again, the early seed of life will be here once I check the statue. So my camera movement is very specific, and I have to watch out for it quite a lot.
Specifically, you want to keep away from the pumpkin patch, which is
Mhm.
over to the left, but thankfully it's pretty easy to avoid. So yeah, when we talk about like how things need to line up such a certain way for this run, it's actually very useful that we have such a couple of in-the-way flags in Skyview, because the boards correspond to the pedestal being like rising up, which is useful for the early pillar back in times, and the red rupee corresponds to us being able to open Betrothed's door. So, or his house specifically, I believe, not just the shed door. So, yeah, we come in here and scare, and
we're
roaring
asking for the crayons. We're not threatening him in any way. This is not a robbery. I promise.
It is just a friendly chat between good old buddies, and nothing more. And a request for crayons. So after 6 text boxes, here 2, 3.
6. I can count.
Let me start our file. And now something to note about these RBMs that hasn't really been visible before is they don't completely stick just by doing them. And like you saw with the Goddess Sword RBM earlier, he didn't have the Goddess Sword right away. That one is a little bit different. It didn't require any update. Well, it did get a flag update, actually.
Yeah, from Bruce.
So yeah, we need to...
We didn't, like, we haven't had to force them until right there, and that rupee is just a scene change, and it just kind of refreshes the flags, and that way it sticks the ones we applied, like you said.
Yeah.
And all we're doing now is, while we're flying, we're just drawing on our map with the crayons, and we just draw this little cute bird statue up in the top left corner.
So, I hope you guys were able to savor Lanayru, because
We're done.
it's gone. We're completely done with it.
We don't like sand.
There is not going to be...
We hate sand here. That's all I have to say about that.
Oh my god, wait. I need to look up that quote.
It's coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere, alright? We don't like sand. Okay, so just like that, all we do is run into the back end of Linear Mining Facility, come back out of it, and then we get the harp, just like that. So we literally skipped the entirety of the 3rd dungeon, and I'm gonna try to mash here, and I got it. So there's a cutscene that starts right there, but it's the same thing as the Zelda cutscene that I was talking about in the beginning. You're able to mash out of it. Okay.
So say bye to Lanayru. We are, and this is not a drill. This is not a joke. We are not coming back.
We're done. We are done.
We are completely done with that part of the run. We needed to get there just to get the harp, which allows us to open the Gate of Time back in the Sealed Grounds, which is a pretty pivotal point to the end of this run. It's actually, and we were talking earlier about how so many things in this game have such a massive chain of dependencies. The Gate of Time is one of them, and it's something that would take just too long to explain, but basically we just require this and this and this and this, which requires this and this and this and this, which also in turn requires this and this and this and this for it. So it's just a whole, it's convoluted shambles and web of just all this stuff.
I couldn't. I had to let it happen.
That is the greatest cutscene. That is the best cutscene in the game, without a doubt.
The time loss is worth it, alright?
More than worth it. Yeah, just come back here and have this cutscene play, and we don't really have anything else to do here for now. We will open the Gate of Time later. But one thing to note is
we're not gonna go get
there should be an imprisoned fight right now with a giant walking avocado with legs and no arms. Thankfully, because of early Thunderhead and well, I suppose a combination of a bunch of the other skips we do in this game. We do get to skip that.
Yeah,
So we're
because
just gonna
normally,
come
if
this
you
way.
remember, like if you played a vanilla, you'd go and learn how to play the harp with Impa, but we actually aren't going to do that yet. It will come into play later, but it's not going to be anywhere like normal for it. So we're just going to, like, because you learn that and then you're able to go into Thunderhead normally, but since we did it early, we can just go over here and play. And we're actually going to do one of the newer tricks as well. This was discovered before RBM and was the biggest discovery in Skyward Sword for like 2 years for a while, and it only saved like 1 minute and 20 seconds. If I can get it, at least. The timing's kind of hard.
Well, it saved like what? It saved, I believe, 1:42 seconds.
Something like that.
And we only use it once now.
My Wii remote's messing up.
Playing the harp is weird in this game.
Yes! Okay. So what I did there is I
Got it.
canceled and I swung for like at the same time for the harp to play, and what it did was it played the last chord and it canceled at the same time, and it cancels you out so Fee doesn't get to sing and it still places the trial down.
It's actually
That
kind of the
was-
same. That's one of Fi's better moments.
Mm-hmm.
However, this part is not. This is a long spiel of text that, well, I suppose it's more or less necessary for a casual player who might not know what he's doing at this point, but it's annoying for a speedrun.
Also, I just need one thing in order to make sure I don't fail this. I need some Monka S's in the chat, and I need quite a few of them, because this is going to be kind of Monka S. It's just how it is. Because recently this route changed inside here, and we're going to do something completely different from what we used to do. And it involves being very, very, very risky. As long as I run correctly, it won't nothing will happen from it. But
So yeah, you might think that the obvious thing to do is to run straight into the tier that's right in front of us. Not quite. It's actually about, basically this trial is just a whole circle. We just basically go around in counterclockwise to collect all the tiers, and it used to be that we went and got the tier right in front of us first, but it's actually about like 1 or 2 seconds faster to come to the tier all the way back here and then get those two at the very end.
And the reason why is it changes some cycles up that happen later.
And this is probably the trial that's gone through the least rerouting out of any of them. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the only reroute that's ever happened for this trial.
Mm-hmm.
The two trials that we don't do, the Skyloft trial and the Lanayru trial, have gone through a couple of reroutes each. The Lanayru trial, I think, actually had the most reroutes
That was a ton.
in total. Yeah, but the Elden trial also had a couple.
We still do Elden though. Elden's going to be a little
we
bit
still
different getting inside of it than this one. So we're still just going to run around a little bit. I'm sorry if I get kind of quiet during this. I need to focus a little bit for these. Because taking a death in these is probably the biggest time loss you can have if it's like right at the end of the trial. For sure. And it's especially easy to make a simple mistake and one of the lantern ones catches you. And you can't outrun the big guys with the axe right there. They will catch you. They will get you. It never fails.
Yeah. So he's been kind of avoiding the light fruits, which are the little white balls that you see on the ground. And there's no really requirement to do that, but it's just that the first one we collect restores our stamina because it spawns a brief cutscene, or it starts a brief cutscene, and we want there actually was a pretty in the way time for us to do it now, but there's another time later in the Elden trial where it's a bit better to do. So we just skip them for now.
I almost always accidentally collected an Elden though, unfortunately.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing in Elden, though, is that basically all of them are right in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like as open as Lanayru or Farron.
And Elden Trial is actually the harder of the two, just like it was before. Elden still sticks as the hardest. Like, no matter like how late you get into it, the hardest stuff always happens in Elden.
Yeah, I think it's generally just overall the hardest trial, to be honest.
So we're gonna do another RBM here, but this one's gonna be a little bit different. So we're gonna have to copy some files and stuff beforehand to set up for some later RBMs. But we are gonna end up going into, I don't remember her name's house, but we're gonna go into a house and collect some gratitude crystals, and that will actually allow us to do a different RBM. Okay, what am I doing? Thank you.
So probably something that we should have explained. What RBM stands for is reverse bit, or back in time. It's an abbreviation within an abbreviation, I know, but it stands for reverse bit magic. And what bit magic is what you've been seeing this whole time, where he's been bonking into trees to update the scene flags from certain files. But reverse bit magic, as I'm sure it's pretty self-explanatory, is just the opposite, where he takes flags from where we are in back in time and then applies them to the file, which is what we were talking about at the start of the run with all this flag manipulation that we're going to be doing. And already have been doing.
And funnily enough, like if you're wondering why it's called Back in Time, the reason why is because that trick is actually possible inside Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and this game, because they all share the same engine. However, it was originally found in Twilight Princess because like someone was doing some speedrun practice and they like voided out in Arbiters and reset at the same time that they voided out, and it actually made them go. Hold on, real quick, let me. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it made them go to a state that they considered back in time because it's on the title screen, and that's like back on the Hyrule Bridge.
And it was like prior to, it was like near the beginning of the game.
So they considered it back in time, but in actuality it's just title screen control. But it's stuck for so long we're not going to bother renaming it. It just kind of works now.
And you know what? It's just a cooler name. Like, honestly, just you are going to get roasted if you think we should change that name now.
Title screen manipulation.
No matter how wrong it is, because Back in Time is a very cool name, and everyone knows.
It's just a legacy at this point, yeah.
Yeah, it was actually in Skyward Sword. It was discovered independently of Twilight Princess. It wasn't. It was someone who his name was the only Zero or the only One. He's used both names, but he was doing practice with the Skirbo fight, and he died, and he pressed continue, but he must have thought that, like, you know, it was faster. It would have been faster to reload his file from a reset. So he then went to the home menu and reset, and he spawned on the Back in Time map.
And it's weird because I think TP and Wind Waker have the same ways to activate Back in Time. But for instance, this game is completely different. Like, you just die on and then hit continue on that screen, but that would not work in the other ones. Like, you have to void out and then hit it in those other ones.
Well, if I remember correctly, in Twilight Princess, you have to do it at the specific spot you void out.
Yeah, it's like
in Skyward Sword, you can only do it after you die, and in Wind Waker, you can do both.
Oh, you can. Okay, I didn't know if you could do both or not. Oh, that's fine.
Believe so. Not 100% on that.
TPs is definitely the hardest to do because it's honestly gets to a point of like frame perfect. Aw, we didn't go up. It's fine.
It's frame perfect. Yeah, it's frame perfect in a few places.
Also, when I picked up that rupee, I loaded the water scale in right there so I could do some faster movement like that.
And something else to talk about is the when he started his file just before getting crystals from Kukiel's mom. That is also an inventory RBM, so it gave him 5 gratitude crystals on his file. So when he enters Betrot's house with file 1, it'll spawn and he'll spawn in a state where where he's giving us the 5 gratitude crystal reward, and the RBM for that just happens to spawn the Elden Trial.
So it effectively skips us going all the way back to Thunderhead, learning the Elden song and all that stuff.
Yeah. And that combined with the Sheikah Stone RBM we do later, it basically all entirely skip Lanayru. Also, something to note in Elden, so we said earlier in Lanayru how it requires a commit, as we called it, which is just where you do another scene flag change, or another scene change within the area to get the flag to stick. For some reason, in a select few places, you don't have to do that, and the Elden volcano map just happens to be one of them. So all you need is a reload, which we get through death.
Like we were mentioning earlier, like this is definitely the harder trial. Getting caught here isn't really costly because you can never, like almost never get caught or killed when you get caught. But doing it well and like not getting caught at all is very tricky.
So you can see there's just light fruits absolutely everywhere. That yeah.
Okay.
Suck to skip.
That's fine. I won't die to this obviously, but it's just kind of slow. Because luckily, like for some reason, instead of putting one of the big guys with the sword in front of this tier, they only put this guy. So there's no real worry about getting caught at all, because these things can basically never hit you. I don't think I've ever seen one hit anyone. Don't collect that, please. Thank you. Give me my angle. There it is.
Yeah. And thankfully, those guys are kind of derps, so it's pretty easy to get past them for the most part, but you do still want to be careful. There's nothing else really to say about the trials, so I don't know if it's now a good time for a donation.
Yep. Are there any donations? Nope.
Well, there are no donations right now, but would just like to thank everyone who has donated to help us hit this incredible 3,000 goal milestone. This has been an incredible amount donated. We're currently 1.3k ahead of midway through Speed Sprinter 2020, which was our best. So we are hoping to hit 4.5k to hit our marathon donation best. So type ! donate. Let's support the OI Foundation.
The support is really appreciated for sure, guys. You guys are making it into a really good cause.
We've skipped all the light fruits we needed.
I know. I'm actually missing them for once. I've typically hit one of them.
Oh, do you just not go for them at all?
No, not at all in this route.
Okay. Well, that just even more respect. Yeah,
that's what makes it hard, is not getting caught or not getting them at all.
Yeah, there are good places where there are a few places where the stamina refill can be very nice, but it is faster in theory, but probably also in practice to skip them all in normal play.
It's just a little bit. Oh, never mind.
There you go. Well, you still get the stamina refill, so no big deal. I don't even think, is that one even possible to skip?
Yeah, you can. You just have to take like a really harsh angle at it. Okay, no, this jump right here is actually, yeah, I messed it up.
Kind of difficult.
Yeah, you kind of got to go with like a weird angle, like, and I just didn't go back far enough either. So you just, okay, stop. There we go. And you can bonk on the edge of that too, and you can get hit. So there's some really unfortunate stuff that can happen from that.
There are a lot of micro optimizations and like really, there's a lot of like general micromanagement really in this game that you need to be careful of, like really tiny things. But thankfully they're pretty easy to figure out, and even if you don't do them, like you won't, lose an entire run to them.
Yeah. It's just a lot of small stuff, and then when the lower your time gets, the more this stuff adds up. For sure. It's just a lot of stuff to watch out for.
So something to point out here is these vents that he's going over right now, or little air geysers, they are actually on a cycle in the normal world, which we used to have to be fast to get to before RBM came around, and we could just skip getting the key shards entirely. But in the Silent Realm, they are not. They are always on.
I think the Silent Realms are also the only reason we're able to go up the pillars or the little gusts without a sailcloth. Because you'll notice, like earlier when I was in Farron, like he would go up them without pulling the sailcloth above his head because he doesn't have one. And I'm pretty sure the only reason that even works is because it works in these.
Whee! It works very well with a wee sound
Yeah.
effect.
If you backflip into him, like he'll do this weird like inverted thing too. Really funny.
But with that, we have the Fire Shield earrings, and we're done with the spoopy Silent Realms.
We actually only need these fire shield rings for one room. If we could get past this one room, we'd be perfectly fine. Or like a little trigger, I guess.
Yeah. If anyone ever finds a way to get into or past that room early, Azer67 will love you forever.
That's his life dream.
Shout out to Azer67 and Copernicus, by the way.
He's the one that they're one of the major. They're both major glitch testers. Like them and Jim have been insane for this community.
And
without them,
yes,
we wouldn't be near where we are for sure.
And yes, to Gymnast86 as well for finding this massive break.
What I was talking about, by the way, is there's normally a little fee trigger right here, like right in this doorway, where she's like, "You can't go in there. It's too hot." So if you can get past that without the fire shield rings, you don't have any repercussions from it. I don't even know if it damages you back here. It might.
It would, yeah, because you can actually, if you have the moon jump cheat, which just lets you jump, like basically float in the air as much as you want, you can get so far back into that loading zone that Fi's trigger actually just it doesn't take you back out far enough, and you still end up loading into the next room.
Did I copy the files earlier? I did. Okay, yeah, I did.
After
in Farron.
After the Silent Realm, yeah.
Okay. And I just saved file 3 here, right? Just double check.
Yes.
No copy.
And you don't need to copy. No copy.
Double
Just
checking.
beware of camera. Just beware of camera.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. So this is actually like the same case where we did the same RBM. We're gonna do the same thing here again. We're gonna do the Sheikah Stone again. If I can start it. There we go. So that's the exact same RBM as we did earlier in Skyview, but it's gonna do a completely different thing. And then we have the fun one, the skydiving. So
And hey, if you have any questions about anything, feel free to ask, because we're here to explain all that stuff.
And if you've seen like the game normally before, you'll know that it's supposed to take quite a lot to get into the Fire Sanctuary, like an entire fetch quest. Like you have if you were wondering how we skipped Linearu and didn't get the robot, this is about to alleviate your fears. And when we told you to remember the pillar that we put down earlier, this is I'm about to show you why. So we're going to back in time again, like normal. And then we're gonna save file 2, I mean, my bad. And with that, we're gonna be able to fly. That's weird, because we've never been able to do that until recently. It's kind of crazy, because all the stuff that would crash in the past is kind of all lined up to work now. Because flying and back in time, if you would have told me you'd be able to do that like 2 years ago when we didn't have all this, I would have been blown away.
We would have either tied you to a chair and threatened you to spill, or we would have told you you're crazy. So we bit save file 2 there to load the ability to fly into the sky, and then we load into the sky with file 3, which has the loading zone all the way around the sky. But if we load into the normal sky, it actually crashes. So before it fades out, we load file 2, which is in the Loftwing tutorial state of the game with Zelda, which is why there's all this text going on screen now. And as you can see, where we have the Elden Pillar here, which we put onto file 2. And it just so happens that the barriers for the Loftwing tutorial extend just so that we can get into the Elden Pillar. But it puts us in Faron because since it's kind of the first time we're in the sky, because of the way we're loaded into the game, it starts this cutscene where it makes a big grand deal out of Link going to the surface, and that cutscene always spawns you in Faron.
Like,
So,
regardless, the first pillar you enter will always send you a Farron. It can be Elden or Linear. Like, it doesn't matter. You're always going to go there. But Elden just so happens to be within that little boundary that we're locked in when we're doing the flying thing. And we're also locked in a boundary now, so this is why we are going to have to go over to Lumpy Pumpkin, because we need the Gratitude Crystal over there for this RBM. But since this little boundary's here, we can't fly over there.
So yeah, the reason we need to go into Faron to then come back to the sky is because we need to be able to dive off of our Loftwing in order to get over there. So, and we currently have no way of, or no practical way, I should say, of just loading straight into the sky and being able to dive all the way over there without having to go back to Faron. So we load back into the sky with file 2, and jumping on our Loftwing loads story flags, and the ability to dive off of our Loftwing is loaded by story flags. So yeah, now we come over here and some good diving after flying nice and high. We get here. Now we said earlier how loading basically any file that has a hero's tunic in either day or nighttime back in time crashes. Well, we happen to have gotten a lucky break here with the sky because for some reason the nighttime, or the sky at night,
Doesn't crash.
in this state doesn't crash. And because we have we also, when we RBM'd Betrow, we also RBM'd the story flag of Gratitude Crystal quest starting. So we have this Gratitude Crystal here. We start our file and run into it, and then, yeah.
It's the same thing as like an inventory flag, because that also will go into my inventory. It's the same thing like we did with Oriole, but it also applies a flag. And you will see what it does just here in a second. So we're going to run over here. And this is, again, like where we're applying stuff onto the map. Like, that's what balking that fairy was. And when I ran over here and left, for some reason it sets a scene flag just running in here and leaving. Like, it does the same exact thing. So we have to apply both of those, and we get our one-shot opportunity to get into Fire 648.
So the first RBM with the Sheikah Stone actually RBM'd the second Flame Wall to be doused. The reason we need to do that is because we don't have the claw shots, and we need the claw shots to actually properly get there. So we do that, and the second one was to open up the flames in front of Fire Sanctuary, the one where we flew all the way over to Lumpy Pumpkin. But that one is actually a bit dangerous because the flames in front of Fire Sanctuary are tied to both a scene flag and a story flag. So if we set it and then come in, then they'll be open. But if we leave and then come back in, the game realizes, wait a minute, they don't have the story flag set for you to be open. So it raises up the flames again.
So you have one chime to get in there. So like, let's say I forgot the water, I would have to do the entire Lumpy Pumpkin dive again to get back in there. So that's probably one of the easiest and biggest time losses, is just forgetting something and leaving and coming back. It actually kind of benefits us later because, or actually, the route is influenced directly by it because we have to kill ourselves on that fire because we can't get out after beating Fire Sanctuary. And because of that, we, like, normally the route changes quite a bit because we have to do a Farron bid at that point, but I feel like normally if that wasn't the case, we would just fly to Farron.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do the same thing, open up the gate, run up there. But these are gonna be a little bit
So
different RBMs for sure.
So I heard you like the title screen. This dungeon is basically all title screen.
Yeah, it's RBM Sanctuary, not Fire Sanctuary, right?
Yeah, that's the running gag in this community, is that it's RBM Sanctuary rather than Fire Sanctuary, because we have to do 4 RBMs here, and we're gonna do 3 right now. So which ones have you done? You've done Upper
Just did UA.
Academy.
Yeah, UA, LA, and then the house.
So yeah, we're going to RBM the scene flag for the Upper Academy statue to be selected, the Lower Academy statue to be selected, and then the Gratitude Crystal in Moriel and Pero's house.
If you're wondering, like, what I did there when I just, like, randomly started it and kind of ran up to a statue, like, if you start it and then press A on a statue for the first time, then it counts it as, like, the first time checking that statue, and that applies a flag. And that's what we're exploiting here. So then we're just gonna do the exact same thing. Actually, I gotta help Azer out. Use file 1.
Yeah, so funny thing is, file 1 there, even though it's saved in Fire Sanctuary, it actually has the flag set for the Academy gates to be open, or the Lower Academy gates specifically, I should say. So we can just bonk with that, and then we are good to go. So thankfully, all these RBMs are really short, but what do they do? Well, the main 2 that we're going to do here are to skip the Mog permits. One of them is to open the bars, the gate in front of the boss key chest, and the other is to kill the Moldorm that is in that room. And those combined will let us just waltz right in and get the boss key. And those are the Lower Academy and Bazaar statues. I don't know which order they're in, though, so forgive me for that. We're not going to do the Bazaar statue one right now. We're going to come back and do that later. But the Upper Academy is, or rather, I should explain this one first. This Gratitude Crystal corresponds to the Overworld Bird statue that's at the end of Fire Sanctuary. So Fire Sanctuary has a unique bird statue that lets us fly straight to it from the sky. And this sets that. So it's very considerate of the developers to do that. And,
okay, we're fine. I was just double checking. Yeah, I had 7.
So yeah, we just have to commit now, and we commit with getting this ferry and getting it, which we're gonna need for a Back in Time coming up right now.
You know, Deesh, can I be honest with you? I don't think I want to do Fire Sanctuary yet. I think I'm gonna do Ancient Cistern first.
Okay, fair enough. You do you, man.
So I'm gonna just go ahead and save. Just head on out, all right? Sometimes, you know, I'm just feeling. I'm just kind of not in the mood for lava. I've been running around it for a while, you know. I'm just kind of not in the mood. So, this is called a reverse bit warp. We're about to do here. So when I was doing bit warps before, what I was doing was I was applying statues from Skyloft onto Farron, or onto the map that I was on. In this case, I'm going to apply the map, or the statue position, like the position Link saved at, from Fire Sanctuary over to Ancient Cistern. This one's gonna have some interesting complications, so like, just watch. It gets really crazy. This is probably my favorite RBM in the game, or Back in Time thing. Oof. No, that's fine. That don't matter.
So yeah, also the Upper Academy statue corresponds to bars a gate behind the boss room, the boss key room being open, so that we can just waltz right in there straight from the bird statue. But anyway, yeah. So what a bit warp is where we take coordinates. Yeah, you explained it already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's very important about that is most bit warps is our positioning at the statue, because it doesn't just take our coordinates from the statue. It takes where Link is actually where the coordinates of where Link is actually standing, which is why our positioning for the bit warp at the Bazaar statue in Eldin was so important. For this one, as you saw the series of side hops and backflips he did, we have a very, very precise position that we need to be saved in to spawn where we need to be.
Yeah, the Eldin one's slightly precise, but this one is insanely precise. So much so that after my second backflip, I have to hit the C button for Link to go into first person, because he steps forward very slightly, and that will cause it to fail. So,
and like every single bit of that setup is precise. So you need to do each side hop like as quickly after each other as you can, so that Link doesn't take a small step back in the other direction. And the same after each backflip, and then again with the C up, like Bailey mentioned. So it's very precise. It's not pixel perfect, obviously, but you know, as you saw, it requires an OOT, like an Ocarina of Time like setup.
Unfortunately, with the safe route, this is gonna be a little bit slower. We're gonna have to push this. Oh wait, no. What? Oh, because I didn't have it safe. Okay, never mind. In my practice, that I had to push that log, but we're good.
So yeah, and another thing to note is when obviously we mentioned how if we enter and exit certain places with certain files back in time, it crashes. It is quite important which files we enter certain loading zones with.
Okay.
So bit magic the log down there, and enter Lake Floria area with file 2, and then the reason he's going to bonk this post right here is actually to spawn that ruby so that he can update his inventory and
this
the
will
water dragon scale,
yep.
so he can jump into Cistern. And the reason he loaded into this area with file 2 was so that the waterfall's not down. So if he starts his file just right here,
perfect.
He should spawn in the ancient cistern basement, and it's perfect. So yeah, you can probably tell by just how close that was, exactly how precise that reverse bit warp was. I mean, I haven't had a racing heart this entire run. I'm not gonna lie, that got me going a little bit.
And also you'll notice where like I slid on the ground right there. That's called a brake slide. Every Nintendo controller has a dead zone called ESS, and it's normally like what you would hit in like Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, for instance. That's what they hit to like do the like Hesses and all that stuff off of bombs. In this game, if you hit it, then Link gets negative speed, and he's able to just go through things that would normally slow him down. So like for instance, in the old route, we used it to get through sand, and all you have to do is just hold like a super specific spot on the joystick, and it just kind of gets some speed like that.
And it's no longer required in this route, but it just saves a little bit of time there. Not showing the Stalfos. If you look up there,
yeah, my bad, I forgot.
That's all right. The Stalmaster mini boss, which normally is just like laying on the ground, it actually is floating down from the air. It's pretty comedic.
You can just see up and watch it fall, and then the boss fight can even start, and you can still open the door. Like the bars aren't able to come back down after that.
Yeah. So after completing the hardest room in the game, we just enter and leave.
Also, if you noticed how I got on his foot up there, I did something called a high flip. It's where you do a backflip the first frame after you do like a side hop, and it gets Link extra height, and that's how you're able to get up there. So we could skip over to getting over to this little rope section.
So the rest of Ancient Cistern is basically normal, as normal as it can be at this point. We just get the small key and then get the whip, and from there we have everything
We need to beat the game.
that we need to beat the dungeon.
Weirdly enough.
It's actually pretty funny because when we get the small key, it's just gonna be like overlaid on top of the boss key because you're not supposed to have both of them at the same time. So it's pretty funny. Also,
And
we know the-
a big
the
thing of Ancient
secret-
Cistern as well. My bad, Dish.
No, it's fine. It's just I was saying, oh, we know the secret to that puzzle because Link is psychic.
We googled it. We googled that's why.
Yeah, big brain.
A big thing to Ancient Cistern is making sure you stay at 4 hearts for the entire time. We cannot take damage on small stuff at all, or Coloctos gets a lot harder. There's a backup strat for it, but I'm not like consistent with it, so playing it safe is the best option in this dungeon for sure.
There's actually what I do in this dungeon is I save right at the statue and after the rope climb, and I death warp after the small key, and that spawns me there, and it's a pretty convenient position to just go right into the right back into the statue, or yeah, and right into the statue, and it also actually gives you an extra heart for the rest of Cistern and for what left of Fire Sanctuary we have.
Okay, we're good. So you can tell if he's gonna hit you by if his mouth is salivating. So like if it's salivating, like right after he pops up, he's gonna hit you and you can't get around that. So you have to wait, but if you get around it without his mouth, then you're able to just go completely through. Okay. Now here's another tricky thing coming up, but I made it a little bit easier because I don't jump forward anymore. Kept killing my runs.
As long as you enter from the center, it's pretty easy. You just need to hold forward when you're grabbing the ledge. So because we don't have the sailcloth, we need to come down here and grab that ledge just so, because if we don't, that happens to be just far enough for us to take fall damage, which sucks. But we can do that, so no biggie, no big deal, and we get the whip right away.
That's also why we had to get the small key, because when we went down there, the statue went down. So the small key area that's like normally right at the front of when you come into Cistern is actually down at the level where the whip is, and that's why we went down there to get it in the first place.
So all we're doing right now is just going up to the top, putting the boss key in, and then the big Buddha statue's neck is going to raise up to the top. And it's a pretty long cutscene, so I don't know. Do you think now's a good time for some donos if we have any?
Newt?
We don't. Yep, I'm here. We don't have any donos at the moment. However, I would like to mention that time is running out for that Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll Monkey Choice Bid War, which is still sitting at $6 for all 4 characters. So a $1 donation will get you the monkey that you want.
That one string of donations, man.
I'm gonna safety
it's
save just to be on the super cautious side.
Yeah, it's actually it's dangerous here. Cistern is a pretty dangerous dungeon because it's fairly easy, thankfully, but if you die without saving, you're all the way back in Fire Sanctuary because that's because you don't have a spawn point set in this dungeon because of the way we entered it. So yeah, that would suck.
Yeah,
But,
especially because you'd have to go through that
thankfully,
entire
all
thing
around.
again. That's probably like the most punishing accidental death you can have. I can't even think of the time loss from that. Especially like if it was 2 Coloctos. Probably like 5-6 minutes, honestly. Okay, so this fight's pretty easy. So we're gonna do the normal. Just take his arms off. There's some slight manipulation stuff in this fight, but nothing too crazy. So once we get both of his arms off here, what we're gonna do is when he goes to hit us, oh, too close. Once he goes to hit us right here with his arms, come on, I'm not that close. Please, please, thank you. If you whip his core like that, it actually manipulates his RNG to give us a slower attack, so that we have time to do this, and that'll take him directly out of the first phase.
And you do need to place 2 bombs down right there, because that's the only way that works. And that is why it is imperative to have more than 2 hearts in this dungeon.
And then from there, we just need one of his swords, and he's done. He's done. So whipping him like causes him to attack a little bit faster. Apparently, I don't know if that's ever been proven, but it's fun either way. So all you have to do is just run up here, off with his legs. And what's cool is I mentioned earlier how the Skyward Strike destroys a boss. It would be him because it takes 2 Skyward Strikes and he's dead.
And that only happens in the second phase. That's weird because it's not just a combination. It's not just the overpowered Skyward Strike. It's actually a combination of that and some weird programming for Galactos. For some reason, the second phase of Galactos just takes an obscene amount of damage from that Skyward Strike. So that's why we're able to do that.
Normally, the developers expected you to just attack him with just the big sword, like once you knocked it out, just to keep hitting him with it. And when you don't do that, it kind of messes with it. They didn't get the idea that people were going to drop the sword, I guess. Okay. All right, Deesh, I think I'm ready to do Fire Sanctuary now.
All right. Just needed a little break, huh?
I didn't want the lava anymore. The water cooled me down. Okay, so we're gonna cancel here, and then as Deesh mentioned earlier, how I used an RBM to get the bird statue there. I'm just gonna go ahead and fly to that bird statue now. So we're just gonna leave here and go straight to Eldon. Also, you notice we're starting to upgrade our sword as well. And we're going to skip one of the upgrades because we're not going to go to Sandship at all. And we're just going to go straight to the final tier after Fire Sanctuary.
So perhaps now you know that we really, really weren't kidding when we said no more Linearu. There are literally not even 4 minutes of it.
I hate sand. That's all I have to say about it. I just hate sand. Okay.
It's coarse and irritating and it gets everywhere.
Oh my god.
What a movie.
And also, guys, we did hit the demise on the title screen incentive. So the way we're going to be doing that is I'm going to be beating the game normally, and then I'm going to copy some new files in. And we're going to go ahead and beat it on the title screen that way as well. Because unfortunately, any percent doesn't have the file setup that you have to fight demise on the title screen. You have to beat Skykeep. But I already have one set up that is able to do it, so we're just going to load into that one and be good to go. And as Deesh mentioned, there's the statue.
Fun fact, Fire Sanctuary is the only dungeon in this game that has a bird statue that you can just fly to it from the sky. Which, like I said, was very considerate of the developers.
Also, so RBM Sanctuary is not over yet. We have one more to do, and it's just the bizarre statue, as Deesh was talking about earlier. So we're just going to go ahead. Final death in lava, I think. Yeah, should be. And then we're just going to go run over to the bizarre statue and do what we did with the other two, and we're good to go.
And that's actually the fastest permanent scene flag RBM we can do.
Mm-hmm.
There are some temporary flags that we can use, and actually 100% does one of them, but it's just another method of early Thunderhead.
Oh.
So
All
with
right.
that, we are ready to go.
We were ready to fight the big boy Geary. He is mad because we did not give him that high five earlier. He's peeved. Also, fun thing is you can drop that pot with the minus button, and it just breaks. I learned that very recently. I don't know why that works, but it does.
It's because you take out the bottle or whatever
You
item
just-
you're selected over.
It's too high for it to last.
So now, with the commit from that pot and the ferry, which is also pretty convenient, we can just waltz right in here and get the thing.
This skips so much of Fire Sanctuary, it's kind of crazy, but the parts that it does skip I found kind of annoying, so I'm not too sad to see it gone. I do miss
It's
Sandship. Slightly, but...
Yeah, Sandship was actually pretty fun. So there's actually, we were talking about earlier how there have, over the years, been tens of things that were so just barely not possible. One of them is actually in this dungeon, and what it is a, basically in this game, certain maps that are only partially loaded, just in some cases possibly so that the background shows the proper environment. At least that's what I would imagine. And it's no different in this dungeon. So basically, Fire Sanctuary is split into two different maps. The inner map, which is kind of like all the outdoor stuff in the middle, and the outer map, which is right at the very beginning, and the stuff at the very end. And if we load into the inner map, we can actually access the out of bounds, or the bird statue is loaded for the one that we can fly to.
Not bad.
And it's actually also a very good fight. And because that's actually out of bounds, it kind of has some weird properties. And that one in particular, if we could access it from the inner map, would just load us right into the boss room if we tried to fly to the sky with it. And that is called a wrong warp in this game. That's a wrong warp in this game, but sadly, if we could just jump like a foot farther, if that, we would be able to do it.
There's also
But
one in Farron, like, I think it's around Imprisoned, and I don't know how to even get it to spawn, but when you go to the sky on that one, I'm pretty sure it just puts you in the past. Just straight away.
Also, getting the heart container there for optimal health strats on the Horde coming up. But yeah, so that one is, and we were talking about about the Gate of Time. The Gate of Time is probably the biggest chain of dependencies in this game that we're really close to skipping. So Gymnast86 has a really, really fantastic video about it, and I would recommend looking it up. But basically, the Gate of Time requires you to opening the Gate of Time requires you to have beaten Imprisoned 2, beaten Ancient Cistern, which in turn requires beating Ancient Cistern and Fire Sanctuary, which in turn require the Water Dragon Scale. So yeah, it's that whole thing. But that out of bounds bird statue in the sealed ground, there's one in the sealed ground that we actually can get to where it is, and it would just spawn us in the past, like after the Gate of Time, and we could just go straight to the Horde and demise fight from there. But for some reason, if the game tries to prevent us from getting there, so if we get to that spot, it's unloaded. And the reason we know that works is through cheats. So it's literally dangling these things in front of our faces, and
that used to be like the old theory of how to get Horde skip to work, or Song of the Hero skip. Like back in the day when we couldn't figure out, like we didn't have a method to do it, that was the old school way we were thinking.
I mean, that's the barrier skip for this game.
There was a ton of ideas for it that just kind of never worked out.
So from here, what he wants to do is save at. He saved at that prompt, and after Fire Sanctuary, and obviously we're doing another Farron back in time. And this one is actually another reverse bit warp. So load in with file 3, and so this one is going to skip the cutscene of learning the Ballad of the Goddess and raising the Gate of Time. So we reverse bit warp into that cutscene, and then we have another Farron back in time to do.
Yep, one more. And that's the biggest time save in the entire run. Or the biggest, like, break in the entire game is... Oh, I thought the other one went for me. Alright, it's fine. Well, maybe it's not. They're beating me. It doesn't, like... Getting lower health really, like, here doesn't really matter. So all you do is you just go in here with file 3, just like this. You go open your title screen fast, and what you're gonna want to do is go into file 2, back out of it. Uh-oh.
Just trying to see if it works.
Yeah, I couldn't get in time.
Just restart.
I'll just do it. Yeah, I'll just die again and do it again. That's an option. I backed that one too many times. See, like, this is the thing with Skyward Sword, is just like these small mistakes really add up.
Yeah, you really can get some huge time losses from such small things. But again, no big deal. Can just do it again.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. One more time, and then then we'll do our final Farron bit.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Twilight Princess had all its skips like from the first like year of its speed running. It just hasn't had anything since then.
It's not that like Twilight Princess isn't broken. It's just that it hasn't found anything for so long. It's weird that that's the slowest one now of like all of them, and that just goes to show like how fast all Zelda games are at this point.
Yeah, because like normal 90% is like half the time of the glitchless Twilight Princess run.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty sizable time save, but since then it's just been such a massive drought.
TPHD got a new trick though.
Yeah, which actually apparently saves like 10 seconds in SD as well.
Oh really? Huh.
Yeah, but probably not something anyone's.
It's probably like, I don't know who would go for that in SD though. That's kind of weird. All right. Do you have any donations by the way while I'm redoing this?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple donations. We've got a $10 donation from Schmumbler, who says, Gongon's only a step away from the spotlight he deserves, so I had to help him roll out. Yep, that means that our boy, the big boy Gongon, is leading now with $16. We've got $25 from Shadowist, who says, congratulations on raising over $3,000 so far. Let's keep it going with a heart. Thank you both for your donations. And yeah, let's see them come in. We do have a short amount of time left for Skyward Sword, so get those donations in for the Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll bid war. It's going to be closing soon.
Okay. Now let's actually do this correct. Okay, so I'm going to go in here, file 2, like I said, and we're just going to open file 1, start it right before that text finishes. Play it safe this time. Okay. That's more like it. Okay. So what I just did right there is I basically bit warped into the cutscene. So when I load in, the cutscene's going to play. So I just got the Ballad of the Goddess on this file. And then all I'm going to do is just save here. Since we don't have bombs, we can't kill ourselves. So we're going to manually reset and then load file 3 and do back in time off of that.
Now, something fun to note about reverse bit warps. Obviously, they take the coordinates of where you were last spawned at, but if you were saved at a prompt, it just and you do reverse bit warp, it just loads you into the entrance that you're, or into the where you're supposed to be.
I had a brain fart there.
So, yeah, it just loads you where the normal entrance is that you went into.
Okay.
Just a bit more fun facting.
So same thing again, we're just gonna go run all the way over here. Take a dive off the edge. And this is the most intricate and the craziest RBM in the entire thing. We're gonna have to set up some stuff on Skyloft, and then we're gonna fly to Fair and set more stuff up, and then we're gonna do it. It takes about like 2 different sessions of setting stuff up for this to work, and like slight mess ups will cause it to not work, and then you have to do the entire thing again. The heck? Okay. So same thing as normal, we're gonna open these gates with file 2, but what we do before the statues, we're gonna open file 1, check the statue, then save it. And you can't actually check the statue with file 2, or that will make this not work, so you have to do it with file 1 first. And then we're gonna do our normal Farron thing, just run back down here.
So similarly to the Sheikah or the Gossip Stone RBMs that we did a couple times earlier, this RBM is going to be of a cutscene, and like the Gossip Stone RBM, we need to have a previous flag set for that cutscene to be active. So that's what the Upper Academy statue corresponds to. It's the flag that allows that particular cutscene to play, or makes that cutscene play, rather.
So again, we're just going in with file 3, and then we're gonna go back behind the temple like we did that one time. And the reason we're able to do that is file 2 is able to move that log down because of Pippet. Since we talked to Pippet earlier, the flag on Pippet's text is the one that allows that log to move down. So we move it down again, and we're gonna go in the back with file 3. And the amount of like managing you have to do on these files is something that you shouldn't really underestimate. Like if you're looking into running this, just make sure like to take your time with your file stuff. Like I can do it pretty fast since I've been doing this for a while, but it definitely takes some learning. So like right here, we're gonna check this file with file 3, open file 1, save and quit, and then back out right here.
And the reason we want to say bit save and quit there rather than just a normal bit save is because that prevents us from losing that flag, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
So enter with file 2, and then I'll give you silence for this one.
What you do, start it, 2, and we got it.
Here we go.
So right there,
So-
oh, you can do it, it's fine. I need to focus for in-prison anyway.
That's all right. So yeah, that RBM is for the it's the cutscene of the doors to Lake Floria opening, and that corresponds in the sealed grounds to the door to the Horde being open. So now we don't have to do any of Song of the Hero, the Skyloft Trial, Skykeep, or any of that. We can just go straight there.
That one RBM skipped all of that.
Yeah, 75-minute time save, no joke. So yeah, and we know he got it because of the way that Link kind of like tensed up and went into a targeting, like kind of prepared for combat position, because that's what happens when that cutscene plays, is he like goes into brief startled mode to look at that happen. So yeah. All's good here.
Now that Deesh mentioned the avocado earlier, we are actually going to fight it now. We are actually going to fight the avocado. And there's a trick that I'm going to try to do in this, in which I do a jump slash on top of his head, and it puts me in a state where he can't knock me off. So if I do it correctly, I'll do it twice, and he can't knock me off of his head at all, and he dies extremely quickly. I don't have to talk to Groose, I don't have to do anything. It's just fast to the point. That's what you hope for, and then but sometimes you won't always get that, unfortunately. And also, like in one of the older routes, we did an RBM that skipped this entire thing. It RBM'd the imprisoned to like happening, basically, and we could completely skip like Gridge talking and all that. Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, that was the other story flag RBM that we used to do. The English route does that, but this route doesn't. So this fight is pretty precise, pretty specific. Wants to hit the imprisoned's fingers there so that he stops briefly, and ideally he would have gotten it with just one set of attacks, but sadly it missed. It's very hard to do. So that we could have just jumped right up on there onto his head.
Aw, I jump slashed too early. One more try.
So, and then if you jump slash just right on his onto the spike there, the game will actually interpret Link as being in the air when he hits it, and it kind of delays the cutscene of the imprisoned throwing Link off, and so Link won't go into the animation of wobbling when it happens. And if we get into just the right position, he won't actually be thrown off.
Dang. All right, we missed them both, unfortunately. So now we're gonna have to talk to Grease.
So yeah,
it's just a little bit of time loss, but it's just kind of annoying to have to go through all this text kind of thing. In the,
I mean, this is still a good run.
Yeah, it's some small mistakes, but the main issue with this is now not only do I have to do that, but I also have to wait on the Grisinator to come back in order to get onto his head again. So basically, like if I did it correctly, like Deesh was saying, like I would just stay on top of his head, and this entire thing wouldn't have happened already. We've been well on our way past the prison.
It's not quite as hard as it seems. Obviously, it is pretty precise, but it's actually not terribly hard to get used to it.
The only issue that like consistently happens for me is when he doesn't get the, like, I jump slash too early.
Talking to Bruce is an honor and a privilege.
Okay, so now Groose should be just about done charging. We have to stun him one more time, and then we're good to go. As long as we get Horde Skip, I'm happy.
Yeah. You're gonna try to go for Thursday's buffer strat?
Oh yeah, I buffer it. Aw. And you can also backflip off of there. And that backflip will get you down a lot lower than where it's gonna spawn you when he just normally knocks you off like this. So I'm gonna have to run down a little bit to get down there now, but if I would've got that backflip, I'd be right next to the pillar as soon as this cutscene was over.
So yeah, very long Imprisoned 2 death cutscene. One of this game's stupidly long boss death cutscenes.
And you have to watch it
normally
3 times.
And of course, normally there's 3 imprisoned fights. So.
I just want to annoy you a little bit at the end.
Yeah. You all the dungeons in any percent.
Really?
Oh no.
You're taking damage. It's fine. I'm gonna sit down beforehand anyway. It's all good. Okay. So also a little weird thing, since we didn't fight Imprisoned 1, the seal that's on the bottom after I seal this thing away is gonna be incorrect. It's gonna be from the Imprisoned 1 one.
The reason that happens, we couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you. But it happens, so enjoy the comedic effect.
It changes when after you do Horde, I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm pretty sure it changes to the 2.
not sure. I might like if you come back. I think if you like leave and come back, I think it might
Yeah.
change, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
It has to update for some reason.
Don't know.
Okay, so now we're just on our way to finish up the game. We got like probably 6 minutes left, something like that.
Yeah.
As long as everything goes well.
Wait, skip True Master Sword for the Bancy.
No, I'm not skipping True Master Sword. I don't want to be there for an hour fighting Demise. All right.
Yeah, there's yeah.
I've gone in there before like that though as a mistake. So what he's talking about is like you get the True Master Sword after you go back in time originally, and that's when you do Song of the Heroes when you come back out. But you can mess up and not get it and just go into Horde without it. It is very hard to do so because you do way less damage than you would normally with the Master Sword.
Well, in theory, it actually saves time, but the problem is that with the True Master Sword, you can like knock enemies off balance even if they block you.
Yeah.
Which is so useful.
Especially for Horde.
And it just makes the Horde extremely difficult to not get that.
Hey!
And I mean,
So-
all you have to do for that anyway is just talk to Impa and then skip a cutscene and then you're good.
Yeah. It's not a very long detour. It's like 23 seconds, I think I heard someone say. So, sounds like a pretty big amount of time, but when you account for, you know, not
How
being
hard
able
it is
to,
without it. Yeah.
to kill people properly, yeah, no. Not
And you
worth
lose
it.
a little bit from less damage. We're gonna take a little rest here because we're tired.
Yeah, for some reason, sitting down literally heals Link, and it doesn't refill his stamina instantly or anything, or quicker.
That's the cutscene I was talking about earlier in the beginning of the run that you actually cannot skip if you're not playing on hero mode. The run will completely soft lock on normal mode right there, and you cannot do anything about it.
And that's why this run is not possible on mode.
So there is a trick coming up. It's called Horde Skip, and to get it, I'm gonna buffer for it. It involves running up a shield over the wall, basically.
And despite its name, it doesn't actually skip the entire Horde, as evidenced by the fact that we're doing the Horde right now. But
Nice.
it skips the worst part of it. So yeah. By the way, shoutouts to Runner Thursday for finding this buffer strat. So if he runs up this Moblin shield just right, there we go. Get over that wall, and that skips the fight with the blue Bokoblin, which is really annoying. Luckily, there's a fairly easy way to do away with him early, but if you don't get it, it's a killer.
I have a fairy here, by the way, so like I'm really not worried about like dying or anything like that because we're able to just get revived as soon as it happens. Also gonna try to skip the arrows here if I can. And we did, so it's not bad.
Oh dang, didn't even get hit. That's tough to do. Well, it's pretty easy if you like go way over to the side.
Yeah.
But that's like playing it safe. And again, we're like it's safe enough with how many hearts you have plus a fairy. So
Ooh.
Skyward Strike taking out a.
I've seen runs die right here because the Bokoblins just get them.
Wasn't that just that one gym run, and then the guy was officially named Billy?
Yeah, it's Billy.
Billy the Bokoblin.
He's a troll.
Just
Alright.
got a raise.
So here I'm just gonna like, my goal is to do a bunch of vertical strikes because they knock back Girahim the farthest and just do them rapidly. So that I can get him as far back as I can before he does this right here.
Then we can jump down in between when we hit him and when the cutscene starts, so we get down. And the finishing blow on him is a little quicker.
Okay. And then also you're gonna notice we don't have a shield, so these parts at the end here are gonna be a little bit weirder, but we found some ways to one cycle like both of them. That we could have done the entire time again, just no one ever noticed.
So yeah, with a quick, with a specific set of attacks involving Skyward Strikes, we can one cycle this phase. Well done, by the way.
You wretched brat.
That's what he says there in English. Anyway, yeah, this second part is fairly easy. Just hit his sword, and then hit his weak point again.
And that's a dead Girahim.
All that just over a high five.
I know, dude, he's mad.
Okay, now the
Think we're
demise fight.
Barely
The
gonna be
demise
over
fight-
230, unfortunately.
Aw,
It's alright.
still a good run though. So the demise fight is super ultra choreographed, and if done well, looks super cool. So I'll just let it speak for itself.
Oh, it would have worked. Okay, well. Deesh hyped it up and I screwed it up.
It's tough to do well. It really is.
This fight is not really hard, per se, it's just difficult to do it fast. And it's really difficult to do on the title screen, so all you do here is just...
And we can't final blow him the first time. He doesn't stay down for long enough. But the second time...
Oh! We're fine. I'll get my strike.
Sorry,
Okay. But I still have the strike for now.
the second time he stays down just long enough for us to...
That's more like it.
He stays down a little bit longer, and that's time.
Yeah, that's time. Oof. Okay.
So GG Bailey. It was a good run.
Not bad. So...
Now do a blindfold.
do it fine. Okay, Newt, so do I just go to Wii menu and do my stuff now?
Yep, do your thing.
Okay.
We still got time.
So, since we did
GG
meet
on
the
the run.
donation incentive, thank you for the GGs, guys. I really appreciate it. What we are going to do is I'm going to copy these files in right here. I already have them set up, so. You saw me beat him once, but now I have to make it harder, right? It's no fun if it's easy.
Looking at this optimal Wii menu.
I know. Is there any donations, by the way?
We do not have any donations right now.
Okay.
So all of you in chat, come on, let's see some more donations. Remember, we've just got a few minutes until the start of Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll, so donate now for it. If you don't want to see Gon Gon. Who doesn't want to see Gon Gon? But if you don't want to see Gon Gon, you can donate for the other monkeys.
Alright.
I swear to God, if we get 3 $1 donations.
Put them all in the lead again. Alright, so we're going to do another fair and bit here, because we're, to get down to Demise on the title screen, this is the fastest one. we're gonna have to go down there with the file setup's a little bit different because this is actually an all dungeons file, but everything still works out the same. So all we're gonna do is another fair and bit. All that. It also feels kind of weird to just delete the run right after I complete it like that.
Yeah.
Just completed it straight in the trash can. Alright, so then we're going to open file 3, because 3 is the early game file on all dungeons. Bit save it.
Speaking of all dungeons, we have very much difficulty getting a good route going for it. So if any smart people have want to help us out, that'd be much appreciated.
Open this first. Okay. So now we're just gonna
smart people.
fly all the way over to Farron now.
So basically the same as normal fair and bit here. Just go to the end.
Also, I'm probably only gonna get one shot at this. So I'm gonna play a little safe to have 4 hearts down there when I go in, because I can't have a fairy or anything like that. And if I die, they like completely soft locks. So we're gonna go in file 2 this time instead of file 3. Just open. Also, in prison's going on right now. We can ignore that though; it doesn't matter. He's rumbling. Okay. So you check that statue with file 1. Run on by these guys. Go in here with file 1. From here on, it's literally just gonna be file 1 over and over again, if I'm honest. So basically, this file right here is set up right after Girahim is killed, or like Girahim 3 is beaten. So we're able to just use this to go all the way, like outside the doors and everything, inside back in time, and go all the way down to Demise like this. Unfortunately,
may I squeeze a donation in?
Oh, yep, go for it.
We have a $20 donation from Rusix, who says, "I'm Baby." And that donation, of course, went to Baby for the Monkey Bid War. Baby now leads 26-16 for Gongon.
And like I said, we just gotta run all the way down here now, just to save some health. Also, it's gonna be a lot harder for me to manage. Oh, okay, well, never mind, we took damage. It's fine. I just won't take damage. Easy. It's gonna be harder for me to manage my back in time stuff while fighting Demise, because when I hit B now, there's a massive item wheel compared to what there was like in a normal run for 80%. So it's a lot trickier to do this.
We're just gonna have to get the optimal strats.
I'm doing it. I'm going slow here. I have to. Okay. Also, we don't have to listen to the title screen anymore now, at least. We get the good music now. Alright, there you go, guys.
GG. Way to go.
Sure. That is way harder than the normal one, man. Let me tell you what. Alright, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. It was really fun to do runs for you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Bailey. And I want to say before we switch over, to stay tuned, we're going to go to an intermission and we'll be getting set up for Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll. Remember, you still have a couple minutes left to squeeze in those last minute donations. Do that. And I will be taking off and being replaced by Levon Firestorm, I believe, on commentary. So I will see you all later. In fact, I'll see you after Super Monkey Ball, because I'll be running Super Fancy Pants Adventure, the 3-way New Game Plus race with Luke and Rill. But GG, Bailey. Thank you again.
Appreciate it.